I can only hope that this is the case. Chu Jinfeng sighed. It's really not that easy to obtain the inheritance of this ruin. Under such circumstances, Bai Yingtian also entered the Black Pool. The number of cultivators in the Black Pool gradually increased until it reached 10 people, and then it stopped increasing. Chapter 4086. Time flew by like a white steed, and a month's time quietly passed. Although the energy in the Black Pool was enormous, the 10 of them absorbed it at a very fast speed. Gradually the energy in the Black Pool became less and less. It was not far from being completely absorbed. As more and more cultivators absorbed the energy, no one was willing to waste any more time. After all, if the energy was absorbed by others, it would be gone for them as well. It was extremely difficult to encounter such pure energy on a normal day. Only when the last drop of energy was absorbed did everyone open their eyes. In just a short span of a month, all the cultivators' strength had improved. If it was any other time, it would be impossible for him to do this. Although we didn't get any rare treasures on this trip, it was worth it to be able to increase our cultivation. Bai Yingtian's face revealed a joyful smile. For cultivators, there was nothing happier than increasing their cultivation. That's right. Just with this reward, our trip was worth it. Wang Yinling nodded. Fortunately, he was able to enter the Black Pool by accident. Otherwise, if he lost this opportunity, he would have to spend even more time. Among all the cultivators, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had the greatest improvement. Because their cultivation was the weakest among the 10 of them, their speed of improvement was also the fastest. Originally, they were only at the 7th level of the Purple Realm. Now they had reached the 9th level of the Purple Realm. In just a short month, they had increased by 2 levels. This kind of reward would make anyone jealous. Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were also very happy about this. Now that when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying were only 1 level away from breaking through to the Starlight Realm, the time it would take was much shorter than before. Therefore, they also planned to wait until this trip to the ruins was over before telling them about the Upper Realm and Di Baichen's background. Previously, they were worried that they would feel pressured after knowing this, so they did not say anything. Now that the difference was not big, they probably would not feel too much pressure. After everyone had absorbed all the energy in the Black Pool, the seal on the Black Pool dissipated. Only now did Ren Ziheng and the others who had been waiting outside notice them. Their faces immediately surged with astonishment. So you were in the Black Pool. Ren Zimei quickly walked over to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Her eyes were filled with shock as she said, I was wondering where you guys had run off to. It turns out that you were in the same hall as us. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Yes, we were able to enter the Black Pool after getting the approval of the owner of the monument. It's just that there are restrictions in this Black Pool, so we can't communicate with you. I see. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, everyone suddenly realized that Bailey Hongzhuang and her group had gone to another place. They didn't expect that they had been here all along. Li Buyo's mood was the most complicated. Originally, he wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, but he never thought that he would be completely crippled now. Wang Yinling and Bai Yingtian had both obtained the energy in the Black Pool, but he no longer had the chance to compete with everyone. Because, with his Dantian crippled, even if he had the chance, it would be meaningless in front of him. Chapter 4087. Hearing Li Buyo's words, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect were shocked. They then cried out, Big Senior Brother, you will always be our Big Senior Brother. Even though Li Buyo's Dantian had been crippled, Li Buyo had always treated them well. Hence, they would not ignore Li Buyo because of this. Li Buyo's face suddenly became a little better, and he immediately said to the disciples of the Crimson Moon sect present, If you still treat me as your senior brother, then help me kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Now, his hatred for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others has reached a whole new level. He only felt that ever since he had met Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, his journey had not been smooth sailing. Now that his Dantian had been crippled, his heart had become even more narrow-minded. Instantly he had placed all the blame on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Even though he was now a good-for-nothing, he still needed to borrow the power of others to kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Only then would he be able to vent his resentment. Once Li Buyo had spoken, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect were shocked. They never thought that Li Buyo would still be so persistent about this matter at a time like this. What? You're not willing? Li Buyo could not help but ask when he saw the expressions on their faces. Everyone shook their heads. Big Senior Brother, don't worry. Since this is your wish, we will definitely help you fulfill it. Great. Li Buyo's face lit up with joy. Previously, he had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' desire to kill Li Yunyu was a little far-fetched. However, now that he had noticed the other party's behavior, he felt that it was really possible. With the new and old grudges added together, he wanted Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to die. Once Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had stepped out, the crowd could not help but try to open the Great Hall's door. However, they never thought that the Great Hall's door would be the same as before. Could not be opened at all. Seeing this, a thick sense of astonishment filled the crowd's faces. Now that the black pool's energy had been completely absorbed, why was the door still unable to open? Could it be that there's something special in this hall that we haven't discovered, so we can't leave for the time being? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, and her clear and bright phoenix eyes flickered with a trace of contemplation. She did not believe that the owner of the ruins would intend to trap all of them here. Since they could not find a way to leave, there must be a reason. But the entire hall is unobstructed. The coffin can't be moved, and the other places are just empty spaces. What other special places can there be? Sheng Huaninging looked puzzled. This place was too empty. It didn't look like there were any other mechanisms. Moreover, hadn't they already absorbed the energy in the black pool? The cultivators from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect were also very confused. They discussed this strange situation. However, just as everyone was discussing exactly how to leave the hall, the scene before their eyes suddenly changed. Di Beichen felt his vision blur for a moment. Then, his entire being appeared in another place. It was a dark and deep place. At first glance, there was only endless darkness, filled with a sense of iciness and coldness. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who had been standing next to him had disappeared. Only he was left standing there all by himself. An illusion. Chapter 4088. Just as Di Beichen was puzzled, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The man was dressed in a black robe, and his whole person seemed to have merged with the darkness. If it were not for his eyes, he would not have been able to detect the other party's aura, which had completely blended into the environment. Immediately, Di Beichen realized that the man in front of him should be the owner of this ruin. "Greetings, Senior." Di Beichen bowed, his face full of respect. He did not expect to have the opportunity to see a trace of the owner of this ruin here. It was really unexpected. The owner of the ruin slowly turned around, and his elegant appearance was somewhat different from what Di Beichen imagined. He thought that the other party should be very old, but he did not expect him to be so handsome. "Young man, I admire you." The owner of the ruin had a faint smile on his face, and his eyes were full of appreciation. "It is my honor to be appreciated by Senior." The owner of the ruin smiled faintly. "You should already know that I have the inheritance of darkness in my hands. You have gone through many difficulties to come here just for this inheritance, right?" Although it was a question, the owner of the ruin said it with great certainty. "It is as Senior said." Di Beichen bowed and did not hide it. In fact, every cultivator who came here came for this purpose. He thought that the most precious inheritance in this ruin was the black pool, and there would be no inheritance of the power of darkness. He did not expect that there would be a glimmer of hope in the end. It was really a silver lining. The power of darkness, even if the inheritance had disappeared for so many years, was still daunting. Just this point alone showed how powerful it was. Everyone says that the power of darkness is an evil power, and they do everything possible to destroy this inheritance, but there are still more cultivators who want to obtain this power and become stronger. Have you ever thought that if you obtain the inheritance of the power of darkness, it is very likely that you will be rejected by others? Di Beichen said slowly, "Power itself doesn't have good or bad attributes. It just depends on what the person who wields this power chooses to do." He did not reject the power of darkness. Although the power of darkness could control skeletons and other inanimate objects, it was indeed somewhat evil. However, if it was used for proper purposes, it would be righteous. In the end, all of this was in the hands of the cultivators. The same scene appeared in front of almost all the cultivators. The inheritance of the power of darkness seemed to be right in front of them, within easy reach. As long as they could obtain the approval of the Master of the Ruins, they would be able to obtain the inheritance of this powerful power. From then on, their identities would be different from before. "I can help you get everything you want as long as you help me destroy those righteous people." The Master of the Ruins looked at Bai Yingtian, his calm voice full of bewitchment. When Bai Yingtian heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Hesitation appeared on his face. "Senior, even if I obtain the inheritance of the Dark Force, I'm afraid I can't do it alone." Chapter 4089. You should have heard of how powerful the cultivators with the power of darkness were. Those so-called righteous people were just jealous of how powerful we were, so they banded together to destroy us. The reason why I left this ruin behind is to find a suitable successor, who can bring our power of darkness to greater heights and make those people receive the punishment they deserve. The owner of the ruin's eyes flickered with rage. Evidently, he was extremely furious about what had happened back then. His gaze fell on Bai Yingtian as he spoke again. If you don't have the courage, then forget it. After all, there are many cultivators here, and I'm sure we'll find an excellent seedling. The owner of the ruin's words were filled with disdain. It was clear that he did not intend to give the inheritance to Bai Yingtian. Noticing the owner's change in attitude, Bai Yingtian revealed a trace of anxiety and hurriedly explained, "Senior, that's not what I meant." The owner of the ruin glanced at Bai Yingtian and said, "Then what do you mean? Those people are too despicable. I'll definitely fulfill your final wish and catch them all in one fell swoop. They'll receive the punishment they deserve." Bai Yingtian's eyes flickered with excitement. Nothing was more important than obtaining power. He had been in the 100 Flowers Order for a long time and understood the power of darkness very well. He naturally knew that others were afraid of it. He did not care about that. The only thing he cared about was how powerful the power of darkness was. As long as he could obtain this power, he would be able to obtain everything he wanted. From then on, he would no longer have to work as hard as he could to obtain some rewards. From then on, the skeleton army would listen to his orders. From then on, his power would be enough to resist everything. Just thinking about that made him feel as if he had fallen into a dream. He only felt an indescribable sense of happiness. That's right. The power of darkness can let you obtain everything you want as long as you kill those righteous people. The owner of the ruin nodded in satisfaction. "Senior, don't worry. I'll definitely do it." Bai Yingtian vowed. Just as Bai Yingtian finished speaking, the owner of the ruin suddenly disappeared. Seeing this, Bai Yingtian could not help but reveal a deep sense of confusion. He was confident that his answer was correct. The owner of the ruin was also very satisfied with him. According to the situation, the inheritance should belong to no one else but him. Why did the owner of the ruin suddenly disappear? Bailey Hongzhuang stood in place and looked at everyone around her as if they had suddenly entered a meditative state. She could not help but be stunned. "Beichen? Yunju?" She tried to call out to the cultivators beside her, but no one responded. Apparently they had all entered the same state. However, since everyone had entered such a state, why was she the only one who did not have any reaction? What was going on? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't understand for a while. She also realized that this was the last moment of the competition for the inheritance of darkness, but she couldn't even enter this state. Didn't that mean that she didn't even have the chance to pass the test? Why was this? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't understand. Chapter 4090. Young lady, I feel that your aura is very familiar. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be surprised, and a trace of doubt flashed in her eyes. Are you the owner of the ruins? Although she could only hear the voice, she felt that the voice was very familiar. It was the same voice that she had heard from the owner of the ruins. That's right, it's me. Are you familiar with my aura? Bailey Hongzhuang looked astonished and said, Actually, when I first saw the ruins, I also felt that the aura of the ruins was very familiar. The owner of the ruins chuckled. In that case, we're considered to be fated. You and I do have some connections. May I know what you mean, Senior? There are some things that you'll understand in the future. Senior, I have something to ask. What is it? Are the other people around me being tested by you? Bailey Hongzhuang asked out of her own doubts. That's right. If I may ask, why can't I? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She could not understand. In terms of potential, she was confident that she would not lose out to the majority of the cultivators here. Why could everyone else be tested but not her? Because you have a more suitable inheritance, and this darkness inheritance is not suitable for you. The owner of the ruins' voice was filled with vicissitudes of life and sighed as if he was recalling something from a long time ago. A more suitable inheritance for me? Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned. She did not quite understand what the owner of the ruins meant. Senior? Senior? Just as she was about to continue asking, the owner of the ruins did not reply. Just as she thought that the owner of the ruins was no longer around, the drifting and distant voice rang out once again. Later, walk into the depths of the ruins. Perhaps you'll gain something. What an ill-fated relationship. Hearing the owner of the ruins' guidance, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She could not help but be curious about what else was in the depths of the ruins. Could it be that it could lead her to a suitable inheritance? However, how would the owner of the ruins know where the suitable inheritance was? After hearing the owner's last sentence, the confusion in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. Ill-fated relationship? What did he mean by that? She was really confused. Hearing Di Beichen's answer, the owner of the ruins couldn't help but chuckle, but his eyes suddenly became stern. That's what you think, but that doesn't mean the rest of the world thinks the same way. What if they see you as a scourge after knowing that you have the inheritance of the dark force? What will you do then? Faced with the question of the owner of the ruins, Di Beichen appeared very free and easy. In this world, outstanding talents will always be envied by others. As long as you are strong enough, others won't be able to defeat you. So what if they say whatever they want? He didn't care what others thought of him. As long as his friends believed in him, that was enough. As for the others, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. The master of the ruins looked at Di Beichen with a different gaze and said, "What if I told you that this dark power itself is evil?" Hearing this, Di Beichen couldn't help but frown as a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. "I don't think so." Chapter 4091. Young man, you have your own opinions. The owner of the ruins smiled faintly. "You want my inheritance. I can give you a chance. As long as you promise me that you can do it, I'll give you this inheritance. Because you're currently the most outstanding young man in my ruins." Hearing the owner's words, Di Beichen's eyes could not help but light up and a little excitement emerged in his heart. The inheritance of the power of darkness must be very impressive. If he could obtain this inheritance, his power would definitely increase greatly. With great power he would be able to protect Hongzhuang well. Previously, because of his physique, Hongzhuang had always been taking care of his emotions. However, as her man, he hoped that he could be strong enough to protect Hongzhuang and not let Hongzhuang suffer any grievances. Furthermore, they were about to head to the upper realm. In a place where powerhouses were as common as clouds, only by being strong enough would they have the power to protect themselves. "May I know what you want me to do, senior?" Even though he was a little excited, Di Beichen was not overjoyed by this news. He only needed to think a little to guess that the thing that the owner of the ruins wanted him to do would not be simple. This could be considered a test for him. "You should know that the reason the power of darkness disappeared from this world was all because of those sanctimonious fellows who claimed to be the masters of justice. What I want you to do is very simple. Kill them and let the power of darkness reappear in this world. That will be enough." As the owner of the ruins finished speaking, Di Beichen's expression could not help but change a little. He said, "Senior, I'm very sorry. I'm afraid I can't agree to this." Hearing Di Beichen's answer, the owner of the ruins was clearly a little surprised. "You must know that after mastering the power of darkness, your power will increase greatly. It will be far from what it was before. Many cultivators will look up to you in the future. You will become a high and mighty existence in their hearts." "So, you've decided to refuse?" The owner of the ruins seemed very confident. He believed that no one could resist such a temptation. However, Di Beichen still nodded firmly. "Senior, I've decided to refuse." "Why?" The owner of the ruins looked puzzled. "If you're worried that you're not strong enough to do this, then you can rest assured. The skeleton army will be yours to command in the future. They will all become your helpers. You can even make more of them." Di Beichen shook his head. "That's not why I refused." "What's that?" "I do want to inherit the power of darkness and possess great power, but I can't use others as stepping stones. I don't know what happened back then, but if they really used this as an excuse to suppress the cultivators of the dark forces, then they were wrong. If I were to attack them in this way, how would I be any different from them in the past?" Di Beichen cupped his hands towards the owner of the ruins. "Senior, I'm really sorry. I failed to live up to your expectations." He really couldn't agree to this request. Although he didn't think he was a good person, he definitely wasn't an evil person. At the end of the day, the other party did not have any grudges with him, so how could he attack others for no reason? Chapter 4092. After making such an answer, Di Beichen fell into silence. He did not know what kind of decision the owner of the ruins would make, nor did he know if his answer would anger the other party. However, the only thing he could do now was to wait for the owner's decision. After all, with the strength of the owner of the ruins, there was probably no chance for him to escape. "If you don't agree, I may kill you." The owner of the ruins' expression became indifferent, and there was a trace of haze and coldness in the depths of his eyes. "You have to think about it carefully." Di Beichen fell into silence. In fact, he had already guessed that there would be such a possibility, but when the owner of the ruins really said it, he still felt a little helpless in his heart. He could not help but think of Bailey Hongzhuang's figure. To him death was not scary. Leaving Bailey Hongzhuang was the most terrifying thing. However, if he did not want to die, he would have to agree to such a request. This was also something he did not want to see. Gradually, Di Beichen fell into silence. The owner of the ruins' eyes kept flashing with a smug light, as if he had already seen through everything. However, Di Beichen replied again, "Even so, I will still refuse." He could not imagine how Bailey Hongzhuang would view him if he became a murderous maniac and spent all his time with these skeletons. Many innocent people died because of him. Presumably, Bailey Hongzhuang would not be able to accept it by then. Instead of that, he might as well lose his life like this. At least in Hongzhuang's heart, he still had such a great image. Moreover, he could still try to persuade the owner of the ruins to spare his life. This time, the owner of the ruins could not help but be stunned. "Are you really sure?" "I'm sure." Di Beichen nodded affirmatively. "Since you're not even afraid of death, why are you unwilling to agree to my request?" The owner of the ruins looked at Di Beichen with interest. Obviously, he felt very strange about his thoughts. A gentleman has things to do and things not to do. Di Beichen slowly said. Everyone had their own beliefs when they were alive, and that was his belief. He could not break his promise to the owner of the ruins, nor was he willing to let so many people become his stepping stones. Therefore he could only make such a choice. As Di Beichen's voice fell, the master of the monument looked deeply at Di Beichen. Suddenly he smiled and said, "Good words, a gentleman has something to do and something not to do. Young man, you are very persistent in your beliefs. I like this very much. Then, are you willing to accept my inheritance?" Listening to the words of the owner of the ruins, Di Beichen couldn't help but be stunned again. His eyes flashed with a strong sense of doubt. "Senior, I've already answered before. I can't, no." Before Di Beichen could finish his words, the owner of the ruins interrupted him. "Without those conditions, are you willing to accept my inheritance?" Di Beichen stared blankly at the owner of the ruins, unable to react for a moment. Did he hear wrongly? If there were no conditions, I would naturally be willing. Very good. The owner of the ruins nodded with satisfaction. You've passed my test. As soon as these words came out, Di Beichen's eyes suddenly lit up, but his heart was even more confused. Senior, you mean I've passed your test and can accept your inheritance? Chapter 4093. Senior, may I ask why? Even though Di Beichen was very happy to be able to obtain this inheritance, the sudden change in attitude of the master of the ruins was really a little strange. Actually, your view is very correct. Power itself does not have light or evil attributes, but many people have done wrong, so it led to such an opinion. The dark power is a very powerful force, but because some cultivators who have mastered the dark power did not use it in the right way, so this kind of thing happened. Di Beichen was a little surprised. Senior, what do you mean? Everything I said before was just to test you. If you had agreed, then you would have failed. The master of the ruins smiled faintly. I didn't expect you to be able to make such a decision under my threat, so I admire you very much. You have passed my test. As soon as these words came out, Di Beichen understood. He never thought that the real question that the master of the ruins wanted to test was actually here. Everything before was just said on purpose. I see. Thank you, Senior. Di Beichen bowed to the master of the ruins with a face full of joy. This feeling was really like rising from hell to heaven. Just a second ago he was still facing the danger of losing his life, but the next second he could obtain the inheritance of the dark power. This was really too important for him. Since you have decided to accept my inheritance, then you have to change your words. The master of the ruins chuckled. Di Beichen's eyes lit up and he hurriedly said, Thank you, master. The master of the ruins nodded slightly. In fact, the dark power itself is the same as other forces. It is all power, but it has the characteristic of being able to summon the dead. At that time, there were indeed some cultivators who had mastered the dark power who used this to do some bad things, so that happened at that time. So, I don't want my successor to do the same thing at that time. This is an insult to the dark power. I hope that the dark power in your hands can be seen by everyone, so that the prejudice against it can be changed. Do you have the confidence to do it? If Di Beichen still had some doubts in his heart at this moment, the doubts in his heart completely disappeared. It turned out that the master of the ruins' thoughts were exactly the same as his. This was what made him the most happy. Then Di Beichen nodded solemnly. Senior, don't worry, I will work hard to make everyone face the dark power, and not let them have the prejudice against the dark power in the past. He believed that rumors would stop with the wise. Even if the things that happened many years ago left a deep impression on everyone, in the end, someone would be able to understand all of this. Very good. The Master of the Ruins Master, Bai Ying Tian and the other cultivators were waiting for the owner of the ruin to pass on the inheritance to them. But after the owner disappeared, they waited for a long time without seeing any trace of the owner. Just when they were puzzled, they returned to their previous state. Bailey Hongzhuang had been standing in the same place since the voice of the master of the monument disappeared, waiting for Di Beichen and the others to come out of the assessment. She waited for a long time but there was no movement. All of a sudden, he saw the cultivator beside him move. Chapter 4094. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with shock and doubt. Then she guessed a possibility in her heart. Since the other cultivators had stopped here, only Di Beichen was in a different situation. Does this mean that Di Beichen has received the final inheritance? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up at the thought of this. It would be great if Di Beichen could receive the final inheritance. Just then the other cultivators woke up one after another. Looking at the situation before them, everyone was stunned for a moment. Clearly they could not understand why they had fallen out of their previous state. They had clearly received the approval of the owner of the ruins. Logically speaking, this should not have happened. What on earth was going on now? Shengguan Yingying and the others walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask curiously, "Yingying, what happened to all of you before this? We should all have encountered the same situation." Xiren slowly spoke, "We met the owner of the ruins and had a chat with him. He even said that he admired me. I've been waiting for him to pass the inheritance to me. However, I don't know why but I suddenly fell back into my current state." Shengguan Yingying and the others nodded. "That's right, we've encountered the same situation." After hearing that everyone's situation was exactly the same, they understood that this was just an excuse from the owner of the ruins. It seems that they had not passed the owner's test. "Hongzhuang, did you encounter the same situation as us?" Shengguan Yingying asked curiously. She had always felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was so smart that the possibility of her receiving the inheritance was very high. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged helplessly. "To be honest, I didn't even have the chance to take the test." Hearing this, everyone could not help but be shocked. They looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion, not understanding what she meant. "Hongzhuang, what do you mean? Previously, all of you had entered the test. I was the only one who didn't have any reaction. I've been waiting here for all of you to fall out of your state." Rin Zimei was stunned. "Why is this happening?" Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "I don't know either. However, the owner of the ruins also said something to me. He said that this inheritance is not suitable for me. Maybe the owner of the ruins has already seen through this, so he didn't let me take the test," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Hearing this, everyone finally understood what was going on. "Hongzhuang, although you are not suitable for this inheritance, the fact that Master specially said these words to you already proves his appreciation for you," Ren Ziheng said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly with a faint smile on her face. "I believe that the Master of the Ruins understands this inheritance the best. Since he has said so, it proves that I am not suitable for this inheritance. So I have nothing to regret. There were many things that were not necessarily good just because they were powerful. What was most suitable for oneself was the best." Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear about this point. "By the way, where is Beichen?" Mo Yunjue asked. Hearing Mo Yunjue's words, everyone finally reacted. Previously, they were only thinking about the previous situation and did not pay much attention to their surroundings. Chapter 4095. Wanyan Ling, Bai Ying Tian, and the others were puzzled when they came out. However, they felt relieved when they saw that the other party didn't get the darkness inheritance. Although they didn't get the final inheritance, at least the other party didn't get it either. They were still at the starting point. However, when they heard the news that Di Beichen had disappeared, they couldn't help but be stunned. Now in this situation, everyone was here, only Di Beichen had disappeared. The reason could be guessed as long as one carefully guessed. If Di Beichen got the final inheritance, it would be a big blow to them. "Hongzhuang, you've been here all this time. Did you see how Beichen disappeared?" Shengguan Yingying quickly asked. Before the assessment, Di Beichen was with them. Now that he suddenly disappeared, they had to find out where he went. Otherwise they would be worried. "Just as you were about to exit the state, Beichen was suddenly enveloped by a dark energy and disappeared from my sight." Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, "You don't have to worry too much. I don't think Beichen will be in danger." "Then according to what you said, could it be that Beichen got the final inheritance?" Ao Lingxiao's eyes lit up. Now that he thought about it, this was the most likely possibility. He also hoped that Di Baichen could get the final inheritance. After all, the stronger Di Baichen was, the greater the hope of him taking back his family in the future. When Xiren and the others couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised when they heard Ao Lingxiao's guess. If that's really the case, then that's great. There's no need to think about it. It must be Di Baichen who got the inheritance. Xiao He was certain. I have experience in this kind of thing. Seeing Xiao He's proud face, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but chuckle. Bai Yingtian and Wan Yinling looked at each other with mixed feelings. Penglai Palace is really full of talents. I didn't expect that the two of us couldn't beat a newcomer. Bai Yingtian sighed. The inheritance of the power of darkness, although it was not clear what kind of inheritance it was, but just thinking about it, Di Baichen who obtained this inheritance would definitely soar to the sky in the future. When they met this time, their strength was still above Di Baichen's, but the next time they met Di Baichen, the situation would change. Wan Yinling also nodded. Yes, there are always many excellent cultivators. We have to work hard too. Li Buyo's expression was already extremely gloomy. He was already a cripple now. Even if he obtained this inheritance, it would be of no use to him because he couldn't absorb the essence force at all. However, after knowing that the inheritor of this inheritance turned out to be Di Baichen, there was a burst of unhappiness in his heart. To him, no matter who obtained the inheritance, it was better than Di Baichen's team. At the same time, he also realized that if he didn't kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others now, he might not have a chance in the future. Thinking of this, he became even more determined. Hongzhuang, what should we do now? Shengguan Yingying looked troubled. We don't know when Baichen will come back. Should we continue to wait here or go out? Chapter 4096. Bailey Hongzhuang did not forget what the owner of the ruins had said to her. The owner of the ruins had asked her to explore the depths of the ruins. Perhaps she would reap some rewards. Since the owner of the ruins had specifically said so, she believed that there must be a reason. Therefore, she must explore the depths of the ruins and find out what the owner of the ruins had said about the rewards. When she thought of what the owner of the ruins had said to her, she felt very strange. Because the owner of the ruins had spoken as if he knew her very well. However, she had never interacted much with the owner of the ruins from the beginning to the end. This was something that she could not figure out. Moreover, when the owner of the ruins had spoken to her, he seemed to have thought of something that had happened a long time ago. It was more like he had seen another person through her. Therefore, she really wanted to find out everything. Isn't there no other place in the ruins? Where else do you plan to explore? Ren Zimei had a curious look on her face. According to the situation they had encountered along the way, this hall should be the final destination of the ruins. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I want to walk around and see if there is anything that we have missed in the ruins. Anyway, we have to wait for Baichen to come out. Why don't we take this opportunity to examine the ruins more thoroughly? Mo Yunjue nodded. You're right. Since we're already here, let's look around so that we don't miss anything. Now that the most important inheritance had been obtained by Di Baichen, they could only wait here. Why not look around? Generally speaking, the owner of the ruins would always place some treasures in the ruins. Then we'll listen to you. When Xiren said. Ren Zimei and the rest did not have any objections. They were originally a group. Since they had come together, they naturally had to return together. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest's plan, Wan Yinling and the rest did not want to continue to stay here. They had walked around the ruins and understood the situation in the ruins. Therefore, they did not have any wishful thinking. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had decided to stay here because they wanted to wait for Di Baichen. There was no need for them to stay. It had to be said that everyone was not used to staying in a place shrouded in darkness. Now that there was nothing for them to do, they might as well go back and see the light of day again. They had been looking forward to this feeling for a long time. When the cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect noticed this, their expressions turned complicated. They had already promised Li Buyo that they would avenge Li Yunyu. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continued to stay here, what should they do? Li Buyo quietly winked at them and said in a low voice, let's pretend to leave with them first. After we separate from them, we'll come back. With Wan Yinling and Bai Yingtian here, he couldn't do anything. Only after they left would it be more convenient for them to do something. Without Di Baichen, Bailey Hongzhuang's team only had 2 Astral Radiance Realm cultivators. With their team strength, dealing with them was not a problem at all. Hearing Li Buyo's words, the cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect nodded. This was indeed the best way. Junior Sister Bailey, you guys continue to stay here. We'll leave first. Wang Yanling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest and said. Chapter 4097. When junior brother D comes out, please help me convey my congratulations. I will be waiting for news of your return in Penglai Palace. I think the palace master will be very happy. Wang Yanling had a faint smile on his face. Although he was not the one who received the inheritance this time, he was still a disciple of Penglai Palace. Just this point alone was enough to make people feel gratified. Moreover, Li Buoyo had become a cripple after this trip. No one would bother him in the future. This annoying fly would disappear from his sight in the future. Okay, definitely. After Wang Yanling left, Bai Yingtian also said, Miss Bailey, our 100 Flowers Gate has admired your medical skills for a long time. If there is a chance, Miss Bailey must come to our 100 Flowers Gate as a guest. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Thank you for your invitation, Master Bai. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely go. Okay, then I will wait for junior sister Bailey at 100 Flowers Gate. The cultivators of Crimson Moon sect followed closely behind. However, they did not treat Bailey Hongzhuang and the others well. They stood in front of them and snorted coldly before leaving together. Li Buoyo's gaze fell on Wang Yanling. He knew very well that if they did not leave, Wang Yanling would definitely not leave. Therefore he could only lie to Wang Yanling. In any case, it would take Bailey Hongzhuang and the others a long time to wait here for Di Baichen to come out. As expected, Wang Yanling deliberately glanced at Li Buoyo when he left the hall. Obviously he was on guard against him. After the cultivators of the other three teams had all left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat down to rest for a while. Li Buoyo has become a cripple now. When he left, he actually dared to be disrespectful to us. I really want to beat him until he is looking for his teeth on the ground. Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. She felt very unhappy just by looking at that guy's appearance. If you want to do that, it's not too late to rush out now, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a chuckle. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up. Really? Ziren pulled Shangguan Yingying back and said, You're really going? I really want to go. If it was just Li Buoyo alone, it wouldn't be a problem for you to go. However, those cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect are not to be trifled with. It will be very dangerous for you to go. Be good, don't make a fuss today. It won't be too late to vent our anger when we get back. Ren Ziheng also voiced out, Junior brother Wen is right. Although Li Buoyo's Dantian has already been destroyed, the cultivators in his team still respect him very much. If you attack him now, those cultivators will definitely not let you off. Don't underestimate them. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Sigh, what a pity. Without them here, I feel much more relaxed. Chu Jinfeng sighed. In the past, when he was in Penglai Palace, there was still a huge gap between him and a top team like Wang Yanling. He did not expect to compete with them this time. He had always felt a lot of pressure in his heart. Now that these guys were finally gone, he felt relaxed. That's true. Ren Zimei also smiled faintly. Since they are gone now, why don't we walk around the ruins? If we really find something, it would be great. Chapter 4098. After everyone had ascertained that there was indeed nothing else in the Great Hall, they walked out of the Great Hall and headed in another direction. However, this path was just like what they had seen before. There was no other special place that had been left behind. From what I can see, this should be the size of the ruins. There's no other place. Ren Ziheng looked around. They had checked out all the places that could be noticed, but they had not found anything. This was a dead end. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. She had noticed this as well. However, the owner of the ruins had clearly told her to explore deeper. He could not have lied to her. She must have overlooked something. She had a vague feeling that the item that the owner of the ruins had mentioned was very important to her. Therefore she had to find this thing. Not long after, everyone returned to the Great Hall and waited for Di Baichen's return. While everyone began to meditate and rest, Bailey Hongzhuang did not give up and continued to examine her surroundings. She still firmly believed in her initial thoughts. When Ziren and the others could not help but feel puzzled. They could not understand why Bailey Hongzhuang was so persistent about this. Hence, they assumed that Bailey Hongzhuang was very interested in the ruins and wanted to see if there were any other discoveries. Mo Yunjue slowly walked towards Bailey Hongzhuang and asked, Hongzhuang, do you think there's anything special about these ruins? Why do you believe that there must be something else here? His pitch-black eyes flashed with a bright and wise light. Based on his understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, she would not have been so persistent if the latter had not discovered some clues. Seeing that Mo Yunjue had obviously guessed something, Bailey Hongzhuang did not hide anything. Previously, when you were undergoing the test, the owner of the ruins had spoken to me. He said that he wanted me to explore the depths of the ruins and that I might find something useful. However, I couldn't find any other way out even after searching here and there. The owner of the ruins couldn't have lied to me. This is rather strange. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. At this moment she had no clue at all. I see. Mo Yunjue finally understood. Since the owner of the ruins said so, then there must be something hidden in the ruins. Don't be impatient. Anyway, there's still a lot of time. You can slowly search here and don't miss any details. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's the only way now. Mo Yunjue accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang as they searched the area for a while, but they still didn't find anything. The two of them then returned to the group to meditate and cultivate. At night, Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating when she suddenly felt a calling power. It was as if there was a strange power that was attracting her. Under the guidance of this force, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in a certain direction. In this way, Bailey Hongzhuang walked until she was in front of a wall. There was no path in front of her, but the power was still pulling her forward. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was filled with complicated feelings. Should I just follow this feeling or should I do something? However, the pull of that power was just too strong. So, she still bumped into the wall. Chapter 4099. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had stood up, Mo Yunjue had been paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. Faintly, he also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were a little strange. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang directly slam into the wall, he hurriedly rushed over and shouted, "Hongzhuang, what are you doing?" However, in the next second he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually passed through the wall and disappeared. When Ziren and the others heard Mo Yunjue's words, they all exited their cultivation state. With one look, they realized that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually disappeared behind the wall. With one look, everyone could not help but be dumbfounded. They had never realized that the wall could actually be passed through directly. Could it be that behind the wall was a brand new place? Or perhaps the owner of the ruins had other inheritances? Everyone's hearts were filled with astonishment. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's intuition was right. There really was another special place in the ruins. After Mo Yunjue rushed in front of the wall, he did not hesitate to charge forward. However, what surprised him was that he could not pass through the wall at all. Instead, he was directly blocked by the wall. The pain from his forehead clearly told him that the wall was real and not a simulation. Shengguan Yingying and the others also came to Mo Yunjue's side. They stretched out their hands to touch the wall in front of them. They realized that the situation was the same as what Mo Yunjue had encountered. They could not pass through at all. What's going on? Why can Hongzhuang directly pass through but we can't? Shengguan Yingying's face was filled with confusion. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would have found it very difficult to believe that all of this was real. Mo Yunjue gently shook his head. His heart was also filled with mixed feelings. That shouldn't be. Ao Lingxiao frowned. Since junior sister Bailey can enter, logically speaking we should be able to too. Why is it stopping us outside? My eyes shouldn't be playing tricks on me just now, right? Ren Zimei was still somewhat unable to react. This was a perfectly fine wall. How could they suddenly pass through it? Let's try again. Maybe if this wall doesn't work, another wall will do. Ziren suggested. Right now he only felt that the ruins were really incomparably strange. Anything could happen. In a moment, everyone began to search. Mo Yunjue looked at the backs of the people searching and had a guess in his mind. Previously, the owner of the ruins specially left a message to Bailey Hongzhuang. This thing should only be related to Bailey Hongzhuang. The rest of them probably did not have a chance to get it. As expected, no matter how hard they searched, they searched. What? Yuza's Yingying's disappeared. Yingying looked. Yingying. Shengguan Yingying's face was filled with helplessness. Di Beichen had disappeared because he had received the dark inheritance. But what about Bailey Hongzhuang? Hongzhuang should have her own encounter. Let's wait here. Mo Yunjue's voice was steady and certain. When the time came, he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would come out. I hope so. Chapter 4100. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw everything in front of her, her eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of surprise. In the ruins that were filled with the power of darkness, the light had always been very dim. They could not see anything that was slightly further away. However, the place in front of her was unusually bright. It was so bright that she felt as if her eyes were shining. She even felt that this was another place and did not belong to the ruins at all. I never thought that there would be such a place here. How astonishing. Xiaohei could not help but sigh. Her voice was filled with astonishment. That's right. This style is very different from before. However, I feel much more comfortable here. Xiaobai smiled faintly. Master, I sense a very powerful demonic beast's aura here. You must be careful. Bai Shi's voice rang out. As a beast king, he was very familiar with the aura of demonic beasts. However, the aura that he sensed was unusually powerful. He could not help but feel worried. Hearing Bai Shi's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze turned solemn. Since Bai Shi had warned her, it meant that there could be danger here. Within her line of sight, there was an extremely spacious stone room. It was very different from the layout of the ruins. Everything here was white as if it was a completely different world. As far as the eye could see, this place was completely empty. There was nothing at all. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked through the stone room as her eyes constantly scanned her surroundings. All she wanted to know was where the aura that Bai Shi had warned her to be careful of was. At the same time, she was secretly pondering. Since the owner of the ruins had asked her to come here, what could she possibly gain from this place? Just then, a voice suddenly rang out in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Insolent human, how dare you come here? Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned. Her pitch-black phoenix-like eyes instantly focused as she scanned her surroundings. However, she could not see the other party's figure. Who are you? You don't need to know who I am. All you need to know is that you will soon become my food. Bai Shi appeared next to Bailey Hongzhuang in an instant and roared at the aura that was approaching her. Brr. The Beast King's aura caused the entire stone room to tremble. Bai Shi's eyes filled with sternness. Even though he could sense that this aura was very powerful, he would never allow it to attack his master. Beast King? The aura immediately recognized Bai Shi's identity, and his voice was filled with astonishment. Since when has a Beast King become a human's contract beast? If the previous Beast King finds out about this, he would certainly die of anger. You're none of your business's business. White Lion did not hold back. If you have the ability, then come out and meet me. What kind of ability is it to be cowering there? Little Black and Little White jumped down from Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, their bodies suddenly becoming bigger. They looked around and said coldly, since you don't need to hide from us, then come out, Chapter 4101. They're actually the Black and White Light Spirits? Upon seeing Xiaohei and Xiaobai, the other party was clearly stunned and its voice was filled with disbelief. Black and White Light Spirits? Bailey Hongzhuang repeated the other party's words as a look of astonishment flashed in her eyes. Are the Black and White Light Spirits you're talking about Xiaohei and Xiaobai? All this while, she had no idea what kind of mystical beasts Xiaohei and Xiaobai were. Regardless of whether she had flipped through books or asked others, she had not been able to find anything. It was as if such mystical beasts had never appeared in the history of the Xingxian continent. She had always felt that this was very strange. Due to this, she had even specially researched with Long Yanwei. As a sealing master, Long Yanwei had a great understanding of mystical beasts. However, even after researching for a long time, the two of them had been unable to confirm Xiaohei and Xiaobai's identities. They had never heard of such special mystical beast. Hence, Bailey Hongzhuang had always felt very helpless about this. These two little fellows were also unclear about their own identities. They only remembered that they had always been in the Chaos Ring and knew very little about anything else. However, this time she had actually heard about Xiaohei and Xiaobai's identities from a mystical beast's mouth. This had truly shocked her. That's right. Then Bailey Hongzhuang felt a gust of wind sweep past her. Soon after, an astonishingly large figure appeared in front of her. A dragon. It's a dragon. Bailey Hongzhuang stared blankly at the figure before her. This was a real dragon and it was a white dragon. The dragon clan had always existed in the Xingxian continent but they rarely appeared in front of cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang had always known about the existence of the dragon clan but this was the first time she had actually seen one. Xiaohei and Xiaobai were stunned when they saw that the other party was a dragon. Even though the White Lion had warned them that the other party was very powerful, this dragon's identity was truly unexpected. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the white dragon in front of her. She saw that its entire body was covered in white scales which reflected a resplendent luster under the bright light. She had to admit that this was a very good-looking dragon. She finally understood why the stone room in front of her was so large. Based on the dragon clan's reminder, if the stone room was not so large, it would not be able to stay here any longer. However, how could there be such a white dragon in the ruins? Based on her guess, these ruins have been sealed underground for many years. Doesn't this mean that this dragon has been here for many years as well? However, this white dragon was clearly more interested in Xiaohe and Xiaobai. It completely ignored Bailey Hongzhuang and charged directly towards Xiaohe and Xiaobai. Its large dragon head then faced Xiaohe and Xiaobai. Why are you here? Xiaohe and Xiaobai were clearly shocked by the dragon's identity. When they heard the other party's question, they could not help but ask, What? What do you mean by why are we here? We only knew that there were ruins here, so we accompanied our master to take a look. If we were to ask a question, shouldn't we be asking you why a huge dragon like you is here? Master. The white dragon was a little astonished. Its gaze then landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. She's your master? That's right. Xiaohe and Xiaobai replied. Chapter 4102. How is he not worthy? Xiaohe placed her hands on her hips. Her face was filled with indignation. Let me tell you, don't think that you're so great just because you're a dragon. What right do you have to look down on my master? A human who has just entered the starlight state not too long ago has become your master. The white dragon shook its head speechlessly. It was obvious that it had just witnessed something unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang had been paying attention to the white dragon in front of her. Even though it had looked down on her, she did not mind. In reality, the dragon clan was a very powerful existence. The dragon clan was different from human cultivators. Humans did not have any cultivation at all and needed to cultivate step by step to increase their cultivation. However, the dragon clan was born with great power. Hence, most of the time, humans were very insignificant in front of the dragon clan. However, there were also some powerful cultivators who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the dragon clan. They could even make a dragon their contracted beast. I had wanted to make you my food, but now it seems that you're a little special. The white dragon sized up Bailey Hongzhuang. You're quite capable to be able to make the Beast King and the black and white light spirits your contracted beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang was very calm as the white dragon sized her up. At this moment, she could also sense that the dragon's aura was extremely powerful. However, she could also vaguely sense that the dragon seemed to be injured. Otherwise, based on the dragon's aura and the power it possessed, it should not have been trapped in the ruins for so long. Can you tell me why they're called the black and white light spirits? Are they a species of monstrous beasts? This was what she wanted to understand the most. Hearing this, the white dragon chuckled. A species? No, there's only this pair of black and white light spirits in this world. Just like the Beast King, they're unique. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. No wonder no one knew about Xiaohe and Xiaobai's identities. They were actually unique monstrous beasts in this world. Then how do you know about them? Can you tell me about their origins? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. Xiaohe and Xiaobai also said, Yes, since you know, tell us. Black and white light spirits. The white dragon muttered Xiaohe and Xiaobai's names. Then its aura suddenly changed and its sharp eyes suddenly became confused. That's right. Why do I know your names? Why do I feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity towards you? Why is that? Why can't I remember anything? The white dragon stared blankly at everything in front of it. Then, it suddenly transformed into its human form and clutched its head tightly with both hands. How could this be? Who am I? Why am I here? Ah! The white dragon screamed and rolled on the ground as if it was in great pain. The dragon's face was extremely ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties stared blankly at this scene, unable to come back to their senses for a moment. What's going on? Xiaohe was speechless. Initially, she thought that this dragon was extremely dangerous. She never thought that this dragon would torture itself to the point of insanity before they could even do anything. Perhaps this dragon's mental state isn't very good. Xiaobai shrugged. It was rather speechless about this situation. Chapter 4103. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the white dragon in front of her, who was almost in a deranged state. Her eyes flickered with a thoughtful light. Master, what are you thinking about? Xiaohe saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had been staring at the black dragon and her eyes flashed with confusion. It must have been severely injured and its mental strength has been damaged. That's why it can't remember a lot of things. She had seen this situation before. People whose mental strength had been damaged may not have any problems on normal days, but they would have a splitting headache at the mention of things that they could not remember clearly and end up in a situation like this. It's been severely injured? Xiaobai was stunned. This dragon's aura is so strong, yet someone was able to severely injure it. Isn't that a little too frightening? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with certainty. I believe that my judgment is not wrong. Perhaps, it's because of this that it has been trapped in this place. Master, the owner of the ruins said that the possible reward you might have obtained from coming here couldn't be related to this dragon, right? Bai Shi was a little helpless. This dragon in front of him was on the verge of schizophrenia. Could this be considered a reward? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked around and said, there doesn't seem to be anything else here. I think it's this dragon. But, what kind of reward is this? I don't know anything at all. Xiao Hei's eyes widened. This so-called reward had almost cost her life. Although she seemed to have saved her little life, it was completely useless. I don't know either. Bailey Hongzhuang spread her hands. The only reward should be that I know your and Xiao Bai's names. According to the white dragon, you're a black light spirit and Xiao Hei should be a white light spirit. I just don't know what that means. It's better than nothing. The corners of Xiao Bai's mouth twitched. Whether they knew this or not did not have much of an impact on them. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked towards the woman who was rolling on the ground. When she got closer, she realized that the white dragon's transformation was very beautiful. It could be said to be a first-class beauty. She placed her hand on the white dragon's pulse. After understanding the situation, she took out a pill and fed it to the white dragon. After taking the pill, the white dragon's mental state gradually recovered and it calmed down. The white dragon looked helplessly at Bailey Hongzhuang. I had wanted to eat you. Since you've helped me, let's cancel it out. Hey, white dragon, why do I feel that you have no conscience when you speak? Blackie looked at the white dragon with dissatisfaction. You look like you've been locked up here for a long time. You should be happy that we can chat with you. Besides, my master saved you. The white dragon snorted. You really have a lot of opinions. Be careful or I'll eat you. I think you're too hungry. Why do you keep talking about food the moment you open your mouth? Xiao Hei. Bailey Hongzhuang called out to Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei then shut her mouth. White dragon, why are you here? Bailey Hongzhuang asked tentatively. She really could not figure out the dragon's temper. The only thing she knew was that the possibility of the white dragon killing her was not very high. The prerequisite was that she did not provoke this fellow. Chapter 4104. You don't even know how long you've been in here? Bai Shi furrowed his brows. Based on their judgment, these ruins have been here for who knows how many years, at least a few hundred years. Doesn't this mean that the white dragon has been trapped here for hundreds of years? Furthermore, it had done so willingly. It's only because dragons have long lives. If it had been any other mystical beast, they might have been waiting for death here. Xiao Bai could not help but sigh. The dragon clan had the longest lifespan and could easily live for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. However, the dragon clan also had a problem, and that was the difficulty of reproduction. Therefore, there were very few of them. The heavens were just that fair. If the dragon clan's reproductive abilities were very strong, then the Xingxian continent would belong to the dragon clan. Bailey Hongzhuang gently nodded. Indeed, it's been a long wait. However, I don't know who you're waiting for. The white dragon's expression was rather vacant. I don't know either. As long as someone can take me away, that person will be my master. However, I've been waiting here for so many years and no one has appeared. You're the first person I've met. Unfortunately, you're very weak. It's impossible for you to take me away from here. What right do you have to look down on my master? My master is already very powerful. Xiao Hei retorted unwillingly. The white dragon shook its head. Perhaps to you she's not weak at all. However, to me she's still not strong enough. There's a restrictive spell here. Cultivators at the Starlight Realm can't break it at all. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood and said, I hope you'll be able to meet your master soon. I will. The white dragon's expression was resolute. I believe that as long as I wait, she'll appear. Are you the only one here? Is there nothing else? Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with hope as she asked. I'm the only one here. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly rose to her feet. She did not know why the master of the ruins had directed her here. Could it be that the master of the ruins believes that she's the one who can take the white dragon away? However, with her strength she couldn't do this at all. Perhaps the owner of the ruins thought too highly of her. After confirming this point, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was somewhat lost. It would be great if Bai Long's mental strength was not damaged. Then she would be able to learn more about Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai. Unfortunately, there was nothing to be gained now. Now she could only hope that after they went to the upper realm, they would be able to meet cultivators or monsters who knew something about Xiaohe and Xiaobai. That would solve the confusion in her heart. Let's go back. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the three beasts beside her. She had mysteriously disappeared just like that. Everyone must be very worried about her. Since there was nothing to gain here, there was no point for her to continue staying here. She might as well go back. You're leaving now? When the white dragon saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were planning to leave just like that, a trace of loneliness flashed in its eyes. She had stayed here alone for many years. It was really too lonely. It was not easy to meet a few people who could talk to her. She did not expect that they would leave again. She felt a little disappointed. Chapter 4105. It's not easy for me to see someone here. If you're not in a hurry to leave, why don't you stay here and chat with me? I'm simply too bored. After Bailey Hongzhuang had stepped in to save her, the white dragon had let down its guard against Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Since she could not be eaten, she could at least chat with her to relieve her boredom. After they left, she didn't know when the next time she would meet people would be. Seeing the white dragon's lonely expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart softened. This fellow had been alone for so many years. It had not been easy. This was also because the dragon clan had a long lifespan and were patient. If it were a human, they would probably go crazy from waiting for such a long time. Master, let's stay here and accompany her for a while. Xiaobai spoke slowly. Putting aside her previous dissatisfaction with the white dragon's attitude, everything else was pretty good. The white dragon nodded as well. Master, why don't you help think of a way to break this restriction? I think that since the master of the ruins had specially instructed you to come here, he must have his reasons. Perhaps. You're the person that the white dragon has been waiting for. Impossible. This restriction cannot be broken by someone at the Starlight Realm. The white dragon immediately denied. Xiaohe raised her brows. White dragon, you're more powerful. Why don't you try to break this restriction? The white dragon shook her head. I've already tried. I can't break this restriction by myself. It can only be broken by someone else. Don't underestimate my master. She's very powerful. Otherwise, we and the Beast King would not be contracted beasts of my master. The white dragon had not thought much of it at first. But after hearing Xiaohe's words, her expression changed. Indeed, the Beast King had always been arrogant. It was the king of the demonic beasts. Logically speaking, it would not care about humans. Who would have thought that it would become a human's contracted beast? Just this point alone was enough to make the white dragon feel incredulous. Although she could not recall the origins of the black and white light spirits, she had the impression that they were very powerful demonic beasts. They would not be easily subdued by human cultivators. For Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to do this, she indeed had some ability. If you can really take me out of here, that would be great. Bai Long shrugged. She had been trapped here for too many years. Now what she wanted most was to leave this place. If it continued to stay like this, it would soon forget what the outside world was like. She even felt that, perhaps she would never be able to wait for the person who could take her away to leave. Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Bai Long wanted to leave this place. She nodded and said, I'll try. Let's see if I can get you out of here. Where is the restriction? Right there. Immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang began to study the restriction, hoping that she could find a way to break it. After Li Buoyo and the others left the ruins, they headed in the direction of the Red Moon sect. During the process, they did not even bother to say goodbye to Wan Yinling and Bai Yingtian. Bai Yingtian and Wan Yinling didn't care about this at all. Li Buoyo had really suffered a double loss this time. After this, they would probably never see each other again. Chapter 4106. Li Buoyo and the others didn't return to the ruins immediately. They walked for a while before stopping. Senior brother, they should have gone far. They won't suspect us anymore. Qin Feilong looked around and said. Li Buoyo's eyes were deep. Wan Yinling is a very cautious person. We should be more careful. Now he only had one chance to take revenge. If he didn't succeed, it would be very difficult to take revenge in the future. Now that he was a cripple, there was no point in living. He might as well take this opportunity to take revenge for his brother. At least he would have the face-to-face Li Yunyu when he went to the underworld. That's usually the case. This time, none of us got the inheritance. Plus, something like this happened. I'm afraid he won't think of this. Qin Feilong thought clearly. If it was in the past, Wan Yinling would be very afraid of them. But now, Li Buoyo had become a cripple. Such a Li Buoyo was no threat to Wan Yinling at all. He also didn't think that Li Boyo, who had become like this, would have the mind to take revenge on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Senior brother Chen is right. They won't follow us anymore. Qing Jianqing also said. They had walked for hundreds of miles and didn't feel any aura following them. So, they could basically rule out this possibility. Li Boyo thought for a moment and nodded. Okay, let's go back. This time I really have to thank everyone. I'm really grateful that you're still willing to help me at this time. Li Boyo looked at the people around him. He couldn't help them anymore, but they were still willing to help him. This was also because of their past friendship. Senior brother, you've always taken care of us. This time we didn't want to see it happen. But since it has happened, we can only do our best to help you. But don't worry, we'll definitely do it, Qian Feilong said. Everyone nodded. Li Boyo had been their leader for so long. Naturally, he had feelings for them. For this matter, everyone must do it cleanly. After you go, try not to let a single person go. That Di Baichen has obtained the inheritance of the Dark Force, and may become extremely powerful in the future. Therefore, our best option is to capture Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in one fell swoop. This way, even if Di Baichen wants to seek revenge in the future, he won't know who did it. Li Boyo's eyes flashed with a sinister and cold light. Even if he became a cripple, he must bury Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with him. At the very least, this would make him feel better. Mo Yunjue and the others had been waiting in the Great Hall. On one hand, they did not know when Di Baichen would finish accepting the inheritance. On the other hand, they did not know when Bailey Hongzhuang would come out. Therefore, the only thing they could do now was to wait. However, just as they were waiting, the sound of footsteps suddenly entered their ears. Noticing the footsteps, everyone could not help but look at each other. Their eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. Chapter 4107. Mo Yunjue and the rest looked at each other. It was unbelievable that a team would suddenly appear at such a time. Judging from the footsteps, there are quite a number of people here. Xiren's face darkened. I have a feeling that they are not friendly. Mo Yunjue nodded. Indeed. Now that the legacy has ended, the other party has suddenly returned. They might be from Crimson Moon sect. His dark eyes shone with a solemn light. Although it was just a guess, Mo Yunjue was certain. That was because, at such a time, other than the people from Crimson Moon sect, there was no reason for the others to continue to come here. Could it be that Li Boyo is not satisfied and has come to take revenge on us? Shengguan Yingying suddenly opened her eyes wide. Although she had always wanted to kill Li Boyo personally, she knew that Crimson Moon sect's team was very powerful. Now that Wan Yinling and the rest were not around, Crimson Moon sect's team had more people than theirs. If they really did return, then this matter would be really troublesome. Everyone looked at each other, but their hearts could not help but sink. Very quickly, Li Boyo's team appeared in the main hall in a grandiose manner. When he saw that Mo Yunjue and the rest were still there, Li Boyo could not help but smile proudly. Li Boyo, why did you come back? Ren Ziheng looked at Li Boyo coldly. He felt that Li Boyo was really a scourge. Why did I come back? Li Boyo chuckled. Naturally, I came back to take your lives. With Li Boyo's words, everyone's faces suddenly changed. Even though they had already guessed this, their hearts still couldn't help but sink when they saw Li Boyo's stance. However, after Li Boyo sized up Mo Yunjue and the rest, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the team. He could not help but frown and said, Where is Bailey Hongzhuang? I'm not telling you. Shengguan Yingying said coldly. Not telling me? Li Boyo snorted. When you're about to die, I'd like to see what you'll tell me. In the next moment, Li Boyo directly shot a glance at Qian Feilong and the others by his side and said, Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them. Qian Feilong and the others immediately drew their weapons and stared at Mo Yunjue and the others. Clearly they had locked onto their opponents. Mo Yunjue's group of 7 looked at each other. Originally, Li Boyo's team had more than 20 people. Even though a few of them had died, there were still 18 people left. Excluding Li Boyo, each of them had to deal with 2 people. Moreover, the other party was not a simple team. They were the strongest team in the Crimson Moon sect. Earlier, when they were fighting with Skeleton, they already had an understanding of their opponent's strength. The Crimson Moon sect had a total of 5 cultivators at the Astral Radiance realm and above. On the other hand, their team only had Mo Yunjue. Aside from the Astral Realm cultivators, most of them were either at the 8th or 9th level of the Purple Realm. In comparison, the strength of their team was too weak. If we fight them head-on, we're no match for them at all. Xiren's face darkened. He did not expect Li Boyo to be so despicable. Previously they pretended to leave in order to deceive Wang Yanling and the others. They purposely waited until the other party left before returning. Chapter 4108. Indeed. Ren Ziheng nodded. With such a huge disparity in strength they were practically doomed. The only thing we can do now is to run. Even though the situation before them was extremely grim, Mo Yunjue was still very calm. We'll split up and try our best to scatter their team. At least this way we'll have some chance of survival. They knew very well that if they faced the enemy head-on with their current strength, they would definitely be wiped out. On the other hand, if they split up and fled, at least there would be some hope of leaving alive. That's the only thing we can do now. Xiren's eyes were malicious and ruthless. I really can't take this lying down. That's a good idea. As long as we run out, they won't be guarding here. I hope they won't find Hong Zhuang. Shengguan Yingying's expression was complicated. It would be very difficult for them to survive this time. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't here, she could only hope that Bailey Hongzhuang would be safe. Mo Yunjue and the others looked solemn. Bailey Hongzhuang was different from Di Beichen. Di Beichen had received the inheritance and wouldn't be done for a while. However, Bailey Hongzhuang could come out at any time. Therefore they could only pray that Bailey Hongzhuang would be safe. You don't have to think of a way. Today all of you will die. Li Boyo looked coldly at Mo Yunjue and the others in front of him. He didn't mind giving them some time. After all, they would all go to see the King of Hell today. Li Boyo, you'll die a horrible death. Shengguan Yingying cursed. That's none of your business. Anyway, you'll all die first. Li Boyo waved his hand and said, kill them all. Remember to ask them about Bailey Hongzhuang's whereabouts. In this entire team, the ones he wanted to kill the most were Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. However, Di Beichen had received the inheritance of the Dark Force. It would be very difficult to deal with him in the future, so he decided not to think about it. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't here at the moment. This was really out of his expectations. Kill? Qian Feilong and the others didn't waste any more time. They immediately brandished their weapons and charged forward. The battle broke out in an instant, and the two sides immediately exchanged blows. Li Boyo and the rest obviously knew that Mo Yunjue was the strongest person in their group. Other than him, who was in the Astral Radiance realm, the others were not a concern. Therefore they directly sent two Astral Boundary Cultivators to surround and attack Mo Yunjue. As soon as Mo Yunjue exchanged blows, he discovered that one of the opponents was a level 4 Astral Radiance Warrior, while the other was a level 2 Astral Radiance Warrior. Under the siege of these two people, it was not easy for him to escape. Everyone did as they had thought before. Even if their strength was no match for the other party, they would still try their best to escape from this ruin. As long as they managed to escape, they might still have a chance to live. Everyone's will to live was incomparably strong. Therefore, everyone exploded with their strongest strength in that instant, using their fastest speed to escape outside. Catch them, don't let them escape. Li Boyo hurriedly shouted. This was a battle where they had an overall advantage. If they let the other party escape, it would be too much of a pity. Chapter 4109. The White Dragon was chatting happily with the three beasties. It had not talked to a demon beast for a long time. Now that there was finally someone to talk to, it was naturally very happy. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the four beasties who were chatting happily. She could not help but smile. Sure enough, demon beasts had more in common with other demon beasts. The White Dragon's attitude was so unfriendly to her before, but it was quite friendly to the three beasties. After the White Dragon's reminder, she had already found the existence of the restriction. Sure enough, this restriction was just as the White Dragon had said. It required an extremely powerful force to break it. She had tried to use her strongest force to attack this restriction, but unfortunately, it did not have any effect. After she attacked, the restriction did not even have the slightest ripple. It was clear that her strength was too insignificant to this restriction. I didn't expect this restriction to be so strong. Bailey Hongzhuang looked emotional. Sure enough, cultivators who could take a dragon away must be extremely powerful. The White Dragon glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and said lazily, I told you without enough strength, it's impossible to break this restriction. If you want to break this restriction, I'm afraid you'll have to cultivate for many more years. White Dragon, why do I see that you're so calm? Xiao He looked at it in confusion. If my master can't help you break this restriction, you'll have to continue to stay here after we leave. The white dragon sighed helplessly. I don't want to, but there's no other way. I knew from the beginning that your master won't be able to help me break this restriction, so I'm more calm. After all, it did not have much hope in the first place, so naturally it was not disappointed. Have you tried to walk out yourself? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. The white dragon nodded. I've tried, but every time I try, I'll be fiercely attacked by it, so I gave up. Why don't you try to attack this restriction with me? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. No. The white dragon resisted. This restriction is very powerful. The last time I tried it, I was in a coma for a few years. I don't want to try it again. It doesn't feel good. How many years has he been unconscious for? Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. This white dragon should be very strong, but this restriction could make the white dragon unconscious for so long. Wasn't it too powerful? Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's incredulous expression, the white dragon couldn't help but explain, actually this restriction isn't that exaggerated. It's just that I've been imprisoned here all these years, so my body is a little weak. Also, I seem to have suffered a serious injury, and I haven't recovered from it yet. You don't look like bad people, so I'll tell you directly. In fact, although my aura is still very strong, I've lost a lot of my strength and will need some time to recover. What's more, since I've already tried and there's no effect, I'm afraid there won't be any effect even if I add your power. White Dragon, even if there's a glimmer of hope, we still have to try. Xiaohei couldn't help but say. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hands slightly. Since the consequences are so serious, let's just forget about it. If the White Dragon was to sleep for a few years because of this, she would feel guilty. Chapter 41:10. The White Dragon sighed. If I'm only unconscious for a few years, it's no big deal to me. However, what if I meet someone who can take me away while I'm unconscious? Wouldn't that be terrible? Sometimes I even wonder if the reason why I haven't met anyone who can take me away for so many years is because I missed the last time I fainted. Looking at the White Dragon's pondering face, Xiaohei couldn't help but chuckle. I think you're thinking too much. If someone really did come and saw an unconscious dragon like you, they might just cook you and eat you. It's said that dragon meat is a great tonic for humans. Even if they didn't eat you, they would at least take away 2 dragon scales. Hearing this, the White Dragon didn't get angry. Actually, what you said makes sense. I'll try to figure out if we can avoid this restrictive spell and get out. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the restrictive spell again. She understood that the White Dragon was certain that she wouldn't be able to bring it out. However, she didn't care. There was no harm in trying anyway. Besides, Beichen wanted to accept the inheritance and it wasn't something that could be completed in a day or two. It wasn't a bad idea for her to stay here and accompany the White Dragon who was about to suffocate to death. After Mo Yunjue and the others escaped from the ruins, they immediately split into 3 groups and ran in different directions. When Ziran and Shangguan Yingying were in one group, Mo Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao were in another group. Ren Ziheng, Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng were in another group. Qian Feilong and the others chased after them and saw that they were running in 3 different directions. Since they had promised Li Boyo, they couldn't leave anyone alive. When Ziran and Shangguan Yingying ran as fast as they could, their faces were ugly. Once the other party caught up to them, it would be too difficult to face the enemy head-on. So, the best way was to prevent the other party from catching up to them. Damn it, there's nothing to hide in this broken place. It's too difficult to avoid being killed. Shangguan Yingying cursed as she ran. If they were in another place, they might be able to avoid the other party. Unfortunately, not a single blade of grass grew in this training ground. They were simply too conspicuous here. Yingying, if they catch up to us later, I will try my best to stop them for a while. Don't look back, just run, understand? Ziran's expression was solemn and nervous. A complicated light flickered in the depths of his eyes, and his tone was unusually serious. It would be too difficult for them to escape today. But no matter what, he would risk his life to protect Shangguan Yingying. Hearing Ziran's words, Shangguan Yingying quickly shook her head. No, I will never leave you alone. Yingying, you have to listen to me. The Crimson Moon Sect's team is very strong. Even though we are good at speed, their cultivation level is higher than ours and their speed will only be faster than ours. It is almost impossible for us to escape from their pursuit. The only thing I can do is to hold them back for as long as possible. This is our only chance. No. Shangguan Yingying shook her head with all her might. Her eyes were filled with tears and her voice was sobbing. You said that you would stay with me no matter what. You can't abandon me like this. I'd rather die with you than live alone. Chapter 41:11. Ever since she embarked on the path of cultivation, she knew that it was very likely that she would lose her life. However, when the scene was right in front of her eyes, what hurt her the most was that she could no longer be with Xiren. Even if it meant death, she was not afraid. As long as she could be with Xiren, that was all that mattered. Ying. When Xiren frowned. Between his brows, there was a hint of emotion and reluctance. Don't say such silly things. You have to listen to me later. As long as you're alive, you can avenge me in the future. Shangguan Ying couldn't control her tears. But, what if when that time comes I can't find you in the underworld? Don't be silly. I'll always be waiting for you. So you have to live well. Do you understand? When Xiren held Shangguan Ying's hand tightly, his eyes were slightly red. The person he was most worried about was Shangguan Ying. However, at a time like this, he could no longer think about the future. Shangguan Ying's eyes were still red, but she didn't answer. She couldn't imagine how bleak the world would be without Xiren. Don't waste your energy running away. None of you will be able to escape today. Cheng Jianqing looked at the two figures in front of him who were running away quickly. There was a hint of mockery in his voice. Previously, these guys had almost caused him to lose his life. Fortunately, the initiative was now in his hands. He was very happy. Don't talk nonsense. Just kill them. Another cultivator said. I heard that they have a good position in the Penglai Palace. They might have a lot of treasures on them. The sooner we kill them, the better. When Xiren looked at the four cultivators in front of him, if he remembered correctly, one of them should be at the first level of the Star Realm, one at the 9th level of the Purple Realm, and two at the 8th level of the Purple Realm. He and Shangguan Ying were both at the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Facing two 8th level Purple Realm cultivators and one 9th level Purple Realm cultivator, they could still fight. However, facing a Star Realm cultivator was a lot of pressure for them. The gap between the Purple Realm and the Starlight Realm was not small. Moreover, he still had to face four cultivators. Even if he fought with his life on the line, he probably wouldn't stand a chance. Ying, I'll hold them back. You find an opportunity to escape. When Xiren said. Shangguan Ying stubbornly shook her head. No, leave the revenge to Beichen and Hong Zhuang. They will definitely avenge us. Now I want to fight alongside you. Even if we die, we will die together. Xiren frowned. He didn't expect Shangguan Ying to be so stubborn at this time. Xiren, you don't have to say anything more. I've already decided on this matter. Shangguan Ying's expression was firm and resolute. The worst that can happen is death. When we decided to come to Penglai Island, weren't we already mentally prepared for this? If I was afraid of death, I wouldn't have insisted on coming here with you. Now that I'm here, I will definitely be with you. Shangguan Ying's delicate and fair face shone with a resolute light. A smile even appeared on her lips. In this life, being able to meet you is already my greatest fortune. Moreover, although the situation in front of us is very troublesome, it's not like we don't have any strength to fight. Chapter 41:12. Please enter the text. Shangguan Ying's eyes were filled with viciousness. Even though they were already at a disadvantage, if the other party wanted to take their lives, they would let the other party know that they were not easy to chew on. If the other party wanted to kill them, they would have to pay the price. Seeing Shangguan Ying's determined look, Xiren's eyes changed a little, then he nodded affirmatively. All right. Since you've said so, then let's fight together. They had to be together in life and they had to be together in death. Now that even Shangguan Ying was fearless, what was there for him to be afraid of? Cheng Jianqing and the others looked at Shangguan Ying and Xiren's resolute faces and found it funny. Since the two of you are so deeply in love, then I'll let the two of you die together. Unfortunately, no matter how deep your love is, it's useless. In the end, you'll still die in this place filled with skeletons. You damned bastard. It's all because of you. Shangguan Ying stared at Cheng Jianqing. She remembered very clearly that if it weren't for Cheng Jianqing, Li Boyo wouldn't have come looking for them, and naturally, they wouldn't be in so much trouble now. Don't blame me. Cheng Jianqing sneered. I did see that incident with my own eyes. This isn't something you can deny just because you want to. An eye for an eye, I can only say that you have to pay the price for what you've done. Even if I'm going to die, I'll drag you down with me. Shangguan Ying's gaze was fierce and ruthless. Her dark red eyes stared at Cheng Jianqing, as if she couldn't wait to skin him alive. After Cheng Jianqing noticed Shangguan Ying's gaze, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. This bastard's gaze was really terrifying. In the next moment, the battle between the two parties erupted. Shangguan Yingying directly fought with Cheng Jianqing, while Xiren fought with the Purple Realm 8th level and the Purple Realm 9th level cultivator. Originally, when Xiren thought that as long as that Star Radiance Realm cultivator made a move, their situation would definitely become very bad. However, he did not expect that the cultivator would not even bother to attack them. He merely stood aside and watched the show, leaving the matter to Cheng Jianqing and the other two to settle. Noticing this, Xiren couldn't help but feel secretly delighted. As long as the other party watched the show for a while longer, they would have more hope. Many people lost because of their carelessness. As long as the other party continued to be so careless, there might be a chance to change the outcome. Bang bang bang. The five of them quickly clashed together. As their origin energy collided, one after another, martial skills exploded out continuously. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had grown up together, and they usually cultivated together, so when the two of them worked together, their fighting strength was very outstanding. It was precisely because of this that the two of them were able to withstand the attacks of the other three without falling into a disadvantageous position under such circumstances. Cheng Jianqing and the others obviously didn't expect such a situation to occur, and their expressions immediately turned ugly. I was still wondering how strong you were. It turns out that you're completely at the bottom of this team. Xiren directly stabbed Cheng Jianqing with his sword. This meddlesome bastard had become the person they hated the most. Chapter 41:13. Cheng Jianqing could also feel Shangguan Yingying and Xiren's murderous intent towards him. A haze flashed across his eyes as he panicked. He had thought that he could easily get rid of them. However, he did not expect the two of them to be so powerful when they joined forces. It had completely exceeded his expectations. Now, he had been injured by them even though he had the advantage in numbers. This was really embarrassing. He even felt that if this continued, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying might really kill him. Muze, hurry up and help. Cheng Jianqing turned to look at Muze, who was watching the show. Muze was the only Starlight Jing expert among the four of them. As long as Muze intervened, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying would definitely die. Hearing Cheng Jianqing's words, Muze glanced at him lazily. There was disdain and contempt between his brows. Cheng Jianqing, the other party's cultivation is not any weaker than yours. However, you can't even handle them. This level of strength is really terrible. I'm giving you a chance to improve. Fighting with them is a good way to train your battle power. Muze still had his arms crossed in front of his chest. It was obvious that he was planning to continue watching the show. He had no intention of intervening immediately. Seeing Muze like this, Cheng Jianqing's expression turned extremely ugly. He could not help but curse in his heart. This damned fellow. He's purposely trying to see me get injured. Cheng Jianqing knew very well that many people were dissatisfied with his decision to join Li Buyo's team. After all, his strength could only be considered average in the Crimson Moon sect. There was still a large gap between him and Li Buyo's team, which was at the top. It was only because he had provided Li Buyo with information that Li Buyo had agreed to let him join the team. Even so, there were still many cultivators in the team who looked down on him. Muze was one of them. Now that Li Buyo had become a cripple, there was no way for him to take care of him in the future. That was why Muze had done this. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying could not help but look at each other when they saw this. They never thought that there would be some conflict between the four of them. This had given them an opportunity. Yingying, we have to seize this opportunity. Shangguan Yingying nodded, and the ruthlessness in her eyes intensified. All right. Bang. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying unleashed a joint martial skill at the same time. A tyrannical burst of energy erupted, and an incomparably dazzling golden light quietly appeared, and mercilessly attacked Cheng Jianqing. Noticing this terrifying light, Cheng Jianqing couldn't help but widen his eyes. His eyes were filled with shock. Such a terrifying force had completely exceeded the limits of what he could endure. After the other two cultivators noticed this scene, their faces flashed with shock. They did not expect that Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's combined martial skill would be so powerful. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded, and the violent force directly blasted Cheng Jianqing's entire body, flying backward. Puchi! After falling to the ground, Cheng Jianqing involuntarily coughed out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after that, his aura weakened. From the looks of it, he didn't have long to live. The other two cultivators were lucky to have dodged in time. Otherwise, their fates would not be much better than Cheng Jianqing's. Chapter 41:14. Cheng Jianqing stared blankly at Wen Ziren and Shangguan Yingying not far away. He never thought that he would lose his life at a time like this. This was clearly a sure-win situation, but why did it end up like this? Looking at the burning anger and hatred in the other party's eyes, he could not help but feel a little regretful. If he had known that this would be the outcome, he would not have told Li Boyo about this. If that was the case, there wouldn't be so many things happening. After Cheng Jianqing's death, Mu Zhe and the other two cultivators only glanced at him indifferently, their expressions indifferent. This guy had only joined their team later on. They did not have any feelings for Cheng Jianqing at all. On the contrary, they only thought that Cheng Jianqing's joining had lowered their standards. Now that Li Boyo could no longer stay in this team, it was good that Cheng Jianqing was dead. He was not suitable to stay here at all. Mu Zhe slowly walked in front of Wen Ziren and Shangguan Yingying. Alright, I've fulfilled one of your wishes and let Cheng Jianqing be your scapegoat. Now that Cheng Jianqing is dead, it's time for you to die together. After all, this is what we promised eldest senior brother. Hearing Mu Zhe's words, Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren could not help but feel their hearts sink. It seemed that Mu Zhe was going to make a move. Li Boyo is now a cripple? Why would you attack us for a cripple like him? To be honest, what we can give you is much more than what Li Boyo can give you now. Wen Ziren stared at Mu Zhe. He wanted to try and see if he could persuade the other party. After all, as long as he could keep his life, that was enough. Eldest senior brother does not have much ability now, but he has helped me a lot in the past. Even if it's for the sake of our past friendship, I should still help him complete this last task. Mu Zhe slowly said. That's nothing more than friendship, Wen Ziren said slowly. He helped you, but didn't you help him as well? As long as you let us go, we will definitely give you something that you will be satisfied with. Mu Zhe chuckled. Don't talk to me about these useless things. As long as I kill you, your things will also be mine. Oh. Ziren shook his head. Mu Zhe frowned. What do you mean? You should know that Hong Zhuang is an outstanding doctor and has made such a great contribution to Penglai Palace. She has the most treasures. As long as you let us go, we can give you our Chengquan bags and give you a lot of spirit stones. With these spirit stones and cultivation resources, your chances of success in the future will be greater. This is definitely a good thing. Shangguan Yingying also said, Hong Zhuang and I are like sisters. We don't distinguish between you and me. As long as we ask for something from Hong Zhuang, she will definitely agree. Rather than helping a cripple who is of no help to you, why don't you agree with us? This way your path will be smoother. Wen Ziren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other. At present, they could only think of ways to deceive the other party. At least they could delay it for a while. After all, after the previous battle, they had consumed a lot of yuan li. They could take advantage of this time to recover a little. Chapter 41:15. The current Li Boyo was indeed of no help to them. On the contrary, spirit stones were indeed what cultivators needed the most. Even though they were the strongest team in Penglai Palace, they still had to work hard to obtain enough cultivation resources. However, with their current need for spirit stones, the number was still not enough. It was precisely because of this that they had to think of other ways to earn spirit stones. After all, in order to maintain their current status, their strength must be steadily improved. Otherwise, if they were slightly slower, others would catch up to them. This was not a result they wanted to see. When Ziren and Shangguan Yingying saw that the other party did not refuse immediately. On the contrary, they began to think about it and were secretly delighted. Li Boyo believed that he still had that kind of appeal, but in fact, from the moment his Dantian was destroyed, his previous appeal had disappeared. This world had always been so cruel. As long as you had no strength, you were a complete waste. If the other party helped you because of old feelings, that was affection. However, if the other party did not care about old feelings, that was also their duty. Mu Zhe looked at Wen Ziren and Shangguan Yingying in front of him and said, Why should I believe what you said? I can swear. Wen Ziren said, I can give you the Chengquan bag now. As for what we promised you, we will definitely do it. What's more, you are so strong that we are no match for you at all. If we don't fulfill our promise, you can come to us. What if you stay in Penglai Palace and don't come out? Mu Zhe asked in a deep voice. Impossible. No matter who it is impossible to stay in one place and not come out. In addition, we have to come to the training ground on weekdays. Even if we can hide for a while, can we hide for a lifetime? Wen Ziren said. At this time, another cultivator next to Mu Zhe said, Words are no guarantee. You can write down how many spirit stones you owe us on the note now. This way if you go back on your word we can take this note and go to Penglai Palace. Hearing this, Mu Ze's eyes lit up and he immediately nodded. Not bad, this is a good idea. As a cultivator, face was the most important thing to them. If someone were to come knocking on their door like this, it would be extremely embarrassing. He believed that under such circumstances, Xiren and Wen Jiabao would not dare to go back on their word. Alright, no problem. Xiren nodded. Right now, the most important thing for them was to stay alive. Everything else was secondary. After when Xiren finished writing the note and handed it to Mu Ze's eyes flashed with a hint of satisfaction when he saw the number of spirit stones written on it. This amount of spiritual stones was truly a huge sum of money. He had long heard that Bailey Hongzhuang of Penglai Palace was the richest. With these spirit stones he could catch up with other practitioners in the future. We'll let you off today. However, you have to leave this place immediately. Don't let anyone from the Crimson Moon sect discover you, Mu Ze said in a deep voice. Don't worry, we'll leave immediately. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other before the two of them quickly left. After when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying left, the two cultivators could not help but look at Mu Ze. Mu Ze, if we let them go just like that, will we? Chapter 41:16. Please enter the text. They knew very well that Li Buyo would no longer be a disciple of the Crimson Moon sect after this trip. It would be very difficult for him to continue staying on the Penglai Island and he would have to return to the outside world. Under such circumstances, what else could Li Buyo say? Instead of being thanked by someone who had no future, it would be better for them to get some substantial rewards. This would be better for their future. Moreover, we don't know where Bailey Hongzhuang is. If Bailey Hongzhuang is not dead this time and survives. If that happens, we might have to endure Bailey Hongzhuang's crazy revenge. A powerful doctor's appeal is not small. I don't intend to get into such trouble for a cripple. Hearing Mu Ze's words, the other two cultivators nodded. Mu Ze, you're right. That's the best way. On one hand, they would gain enough benefits. On the other hand, the other party would not hold a grudge. It was a win-win situation. After Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had distanced themselves, both of them felt a little relieved. Xiren, it's all thanks to you that we managed to convince them. Otherwise, if we were to fight, our situation would not be optimistic. Shangguan Yingying could not help but sigh. Her eyes shone with excitement. Just dealing with Cheng Jianqing and the other two had already exhausted a lot of their energy. If Mu Ze were to intervene, they would not have any hope of winning. They did not expect that Xiren would only move his lips and they would be able to escape from such a dangerous situation. Until now, she still felt as if she was in a dream. It did not feel real at all. When Xiren chuckled, actually this situation isn't strange. Li Buyo no longer has any meaning to these people. They only chose to help because of their past relationship with him. However, when it came to friendship and benefits, it was much weaker. We were lucky. Although these people have a certain level of friendship with Li Buyo, it is not very deep. That's why we took advantage of this loophole. If we had met someone who had a good relationship with Li Buyo, I'm afraid it would not have been so easy. Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly. Indeed. What should we do now? Yunju, Zimei and the others are probably still in danger. If they left like this, the two of them would naturally be safe. However, Mo Yunjue, Ren Zimei, and the others would still be in danger. However, once they joined in, they might also be in danger. Let's go find them. Xiren's eyes flashed with a resolute and determined light. They were a team, so they naturally could not abandon each other. Moreover, according to their previous situation, the number of people chasing them was basically twice their number. If the two of them joined in, then the other party's advantage would not be so obvious, and they might even have a chance of survival. Okay. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were as bright as the stars. This was also her idea. The next moment, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying began to look around, they only remembered that the three teams had run in different directions. Now they couldn't immediately find each other's location. They could only look around and hope to find each other as soon as possible. Chapter 41:17. Ren Ziheng, Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng fled as the pursuers behind them relentlessly chased after them. There were only 3 of them, but the pursuers behind them had 5 people. Among them, 4 of them were about the same strength as them, but there was still an Astral Radiance Realm cultivator. This made them feel even more pressured. If it was Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they might not feel too anxious when facing such an opponent. However, they did not have the abnormal battle prowess of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Hence, it was practically impossible for them to escape from such a situation. Stop running. You can't escape anymore. Qian Feilong looked at the three figures bitterly trying to survive as a trace of disdain and indifference surfaced in his eyes. Ren Ziheng and the others looked at each other as their expressions became extremely ugly. An indescribable panic spread in their hearts, but they did not stop because of this. Seeing that Ren Ziheng and the others were still fleeing, Qian Feilong's figure flew and blocked their path. I've already said that none of you can escape. Rather than stubbornly resisting like this, you might as well just kill yourselves. At least this way you will have a quick death. Seeing this, Ren Ziheng and the others were forced to stop. The pursuers had practically surrounded them in an instant. Qian Feilong, there is no enmity between us. Why must you force us to do this? Ren Ziheng's expression was ugly. As a rather famous cultivator in the Crimson Moon sect, Ren Ziheng naturally knew of Qian Feilong's reputation. However, he never imagined that there would be a day when they would cross paths like this. There is indeed no enmity between us. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being in the same group as Bailey Hongzhuang. The reason why you have ended up like this is because you have been dragged down by her. Qian Feilong shrugged his shoulders. He had no interest in Ren Ziheng and the others. To him, these fellows were not even worthy of being called opponents. Using them to deal with them would only be a waste of time. I'll give you a chance now. And yourselves? At least you can preserve some dignity. Otherwise, once you fall into our hands, you will suffer a little. Qian Feilong said coldly. Ren Ziheng and the others looked at each other, and their expressions revealed struggle and hesitation. They knew very clearly in their hearts that they weren't a match for Qian Feilong, who was at the Starlight Realm. However, they were also unable to accept the fact that they had to self-destruct like this. At this time, Chu Jinfeng gave Ren Ziheng and the other two a meaningful glance. He quietly took out something with his right hand and shouted, "Run!" Although Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei did not react to what Chu Jinfeng had taken out, with their tacit understanding, they did not hesitate to run forward when Chu Jinfeng shouted that word. Qian Feilong and the others naturally didn't expect Chu Jinfeng to take out something at this time. However, Qian Feilong's reaction speed was also very fast. When he saw Chu Jinfeng move, he quickly retreated a little. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the ground where Chu Jinfeng and the others had been standing had been blasted into a huge crater. Smoke and dust filled the air. The Crimson Moon sect cultivators who were closer to the crater were immediately sent flying by the explosion. Although Qian Feilong had sensed that something was amiss and had retreated a little, the area of effect was very wide. He was still injured. Chapter 41:18. At the same time, Chu Jinfeng and the other two quickly ran away. This was their only chance. After hearing the huge commotion behind them, Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei could not help but gasp in amazement. Clearly, they did not expect Chu Jinfeng to have such a trick up his sleeve. Jinfeng, are these the explosives that junior sister Bailey had made? Ren Zimei immediately recognized the source of these things. When they had first seen Bailey Hongzhuang using these explosives, they had been deeply shocked by its effects. Chu Jinfeng nodded gently. Junior sister Bailey had made some previously and I had kept a copy with me in case of an emergency. I never thought that I would actually have to use it this time. The power of these explosives is truly extraordinary. Ren Ziheng's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly a genius to have been able to make such explosives. However, Qian Feilong and the others are no ordinary people either. I hope that these explosives can seriously injure them. Otherwise, once they catch up to us, I'm afraid that our situation will become even worse. Big brother, we've already come this far. How bad can it get? At most, we'll lose our lives. At this moment, Ren Zimei had become much calmer. The other party had wanted their lives in the first place. Now that they had come this far, the worst that could happen was that they would lose their lives. On the contrary, as long as they could make the other party pay a price, that would be good enough. You're right. Ren Ziheng nodded. I hope that we can take advantage of this opportunity to escape. Ren Ziheng and the other two unleashed their greatest speed and fled forward. At this moment they felt a little depressed. The teleportation formation was so far away from them. If they were close enough, they would still have a chance of survival. However, the teleportation formation was so far away that it would be difficult for them to reach it. If the other party were to catch up to them during this period of time, they would be completely finished. When Qian Feilong and the others regained their senses, they realized that they were all injured. Qian Feilong's arm was dripping with blood. His eyes were gloomy and vicious. I didn't expect these guys to have such powerful treasures. Damn it. The situation of the other 4 cultivators was even worse than Qian Feilong's. One of the cultivators had been seriously injured by the explosion and his aura had already withered. Even though he had consumed a life-saving elixir immediately, his complexion did not improve at all. Another cultivator's legs were injured by the explosion and he fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Senior brother Qian, you must avenge us. The cultivator whose legs were injured had an ugly expression on his face. He had thought that he could toy with the other party for a while, but he did not expect that they would fail miserably and pay such a huge price. Qian Feilong felt embarrassed when he saw them like this. He immediately nodded and said, "Don't worry, I'll definitely kill them." Immediately after, only 3 people were left from the original 5-man team. However, compared to their previous rather lazy appearance, the eyes of the 3 people were now filled with killing intent. As long as they caught up to him, they would kill him immediately. Chapter 41:19. Please enter the text. Damn it. They're catching up again. Chu Jinfeng's face was gloomy and his eyes were filled with despair. He could feel the other party's aura getting closer and closer. His wishful thinking had been extinguished as the other party had caught up. Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei's faces were also ashen. At this moment they really had no other choice. Forget it. Since we've already come this far, there's nothing we can do. Why don't we just fight? At most we'll be men again after 18 years. Ren Ziheng steeled his heart and his eyes became sharp and resolute. As a cultivator, he had long been prepared to lose his life at any time. Rather than cowering and dying, it was better to fight fair and square. This way at least their deaths would be worth it. Ren Zimei nodded, "All right. Let's fight to the death with these despicable bastards." Chu Jinfeng looked at Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei beside him and said, "You 2 run first. I'll think of a way to draw them away and give you a chance to live." Hearing Chu Jinfeng's words, Ren Ziheng and Ren Zimei were stunned and immediately rejected Chu Jinfeng's suggestion. "No. Why not?" Chu Jinfeng quickly said, "Since we've already prepared to die, if I die alone, the 3 of us die together, we die too. Why don't you let me fight and see if I can buy you some time? As long as you can successfully escape, my sacrifice will be worth it. From the aura of the other party, they're still some distance away from us. I'll raise my aura and draw them in another direction while you 2 run for your lives. Do you understand?" Chu Jinfeng's expression was resolute and resolute. He had already thought of this. As a man, his strength may not be comparable to others, but he would definitely do his best to protect the woman he loved. "Jinfeng, you can't." Ren Zimei quickly shook her head, her expression becoming incomparably resolute. Chu Jinfeng's lips curled into a smile. "Zimei, I've said before that no matter what, I'll protect you. For you to agree to be with me is the happiest thing that has happened to me in all these years. Although we haven't been together for long, it's already very satisfying for me. I don't know if I can let you live by doing this, but I will do my best." He knew very well that he was no match for Qian Feilong and the others. Therefore the only thing he could do was to try his best to delay them, hoping to fight for a chance for Ren Zimei and the others. "I don't agree." Ren Zimei was very determined. Tears quietly appeared in her eyes. Although she had always liked to say that Chu Jinfeng was indecent and unreliable, at this moment, what Chu Jinfeng had done shocked and touched her heart. An indescribable feeling of gratitude spread through her heart. It was this guy who usually didn't behave properly who was willing to risk his life for her at this time. When Chu Jinfeng saw Ren Zimei's state, he couldn't help but turn his gaze to Ren Ziheng. "Ziheng, I'll leave Zimei to you. You must find a way to survive." Ren Ziheng frowned. His eyes were bloodshot, but in the end he nodded. "All right." He couldn't let down Chu Jinfeng's good intentions. Now wasn't the time to think about all this. As long as there was a chance of survival, he had to fight for it. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.